Hey, One World Entertainment, and it's over. It's finally over. Strange New Worlds has made it to the end. Thank God, because this entire season, each episode was just worse after worse after worse, and this episode was no different. And thankfully, this month, in the next couple of weeks, we get massive palate cleansers from all the garbage that I've stuck watching, such as Strange New Worlds and Alien Earth right now, when we get Tulsa King Season 3 finally comes back. And then at the same time, Alice in Borderlands Season 3 drops on Netflix, and now all this, and it's like, thank God I got some palate cleansers coming up. But this episode, do they rip off other Star Trek and other better shows and stuff? Kinda, little bits. They definitely try and rip off at least a chunk off, story-wise, not throughout the whole episode, but a story element that just randomly appears out of nowhere. The Inner Light, the episode in TNG when Picard gets knocked out by the satellite and he ends up living an entire life, and it turns out like he was only unconscious for like 2 minutes or something, and he spent like, how long was it again, something like 70 years or something as in this person's life. And it was basically the kind of message in a bottle, basically, of the remnants of the civilization that's long since gone, and it was uploaded in this satellite and he was given the ability to see it. They do something like that, just that it's basically Pike and his girlfriend live an entire life, and it kind of randomly comes out of nowhere. This episode is also basically a part 2 to, was it like episode 4 or 5 in this season, the one that was basically a rip-off of Indiana Jones, where they even had to do the leap of fate. If you remember, I was saying in that episode, the young black doctor who Mbega brought on board the Enterprise, he gets his eyes basically ripped out, well, burnt out and stuff like that. He's back. How is he back? Well, there seems to be some weird DNA sequence uploaded in the transporter buffer or something. It gets very convoluted the way they start explaining things and how things happen in this. I was like, what is going on? So it's basically, we start off with Pike and his girlfriend, and she's about to finally leave the Enterprise to go and take up her new position as whatever it is, Admiral, Fleet Chief, something or another, operations. And she's like, I feel great, blah, 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 and all this crap. And while all this kind of stuff is happening, we go to Nurse Chapel's boyfriend, who's on a planet with these big shard things that float in the sky that are meant to be these weird temples. And it's weird the way they do this, because he goes up, he finally gets permission to go up into this temple thing, and as he's up there, he starts narrating stuff, but then the kind of this high priest that they're all kind of bowing down to turns around, and it's the Black Doctor dude, not the main doctor, not Mbega, the guy who got his eyes burnt out. Only he's got this weird big mask thing on and stuff, and he's like, oh, whatever the thing dude's name is again, he's so good to see you again and stuff like that. And then we just go right back to the Enterprise, and they're kind of talking again in there, and it kind of fades into going back to the story that's happening on the Enterprise. Like, what way are you structuring this? And it turns out that while that's happening, like while he's being brought up and he's being introduced to things, before he turns around, like, we're going back to the Enterprise. And this is where they're kind of finding out Scotty, Nurse Chapel and Mbega are working on where the main surgery bed thing is. That's missing. I think they're updating the system or something, and that's where Scotty discovers, hey, there's like a weird DNA sequence forming, or has formed, in the transporter buffer. And then they find out it was the young Black Doctor dude, and they're like, well, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? And that's when he turns around on the planet, and the structure for it was so strange. So the Enterprise goes to this planet, and it's going to take them 11 hours to get there. They obviously brought it to Pike's attention. Like, hey, this dude somehow has returned. Like, the weird alien that was in him, it has formed his structure back. How exactly the alien is there, seeing as they trapped it in the weird ball thing, I don't know. And that's never explained. But either way, they bring it to Pike and they have a meeting. And he's like, it'll take 11 hours to get there, but let's go. Blah, blah, blah. And they get there. And they arrive down and there's like this door gate thing. And it's got all different languages on it. And they see Swahili is written on it. And all of this type of stuff. And then Umbega says, my language is on here too. And they're like, okay, that's weird. How? Oh, I forgot to say, actually. How they get up to this temple thing is there's two guards always standing at the... It's like a transporter. You walk through this, like, gateway and it transports you up into the big shard things. They're like, right, how do we distract them? Oh, by the way, this is also funny. I'm sorry, jumping around a bit with this. But number one, Mbega, Na'an, Chapel, and I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. All beamed down. Now, they just have different clothes on, like clothes that kind of fit this world. This world, by the way, has no spatial travel. They don't leave the planet. They don't have warp speed or anything. But they do have an alliance and trading agreements with the Orions. So it's not like you're breaking the Prime Directive or anything. But they're just wearing the normal clothes. But they all look normal. Like, they're not in disguises or anything. Except Nurse Chapel. Because for some reason, she beams down with red hair. And I was sitting there watching and I was like, none of the rest of them are in disguises. Like, Na'an just has her hair down, but it's her hair. You know, Umbega has nothing different to him. Number one has nothing different. Why is Chapel got this weird red hair? Like, why? But they're like, right, how do we distract the guards to get through that thing? And Na'an's going, right, you do it something and I'll take them out, kind of. So, number one and Mbega act like they're drunk, walking up, going, I told you they wouldn't let us through. What do you think happens? Can you figure it out already? Can you think of what's about to happen? You probably haven't, because it's like, oh, you gotta be shitting me. Na'an runs up behind them and gives the two of them at the same time the Vulcan neck pinch. That's right, a human has been taught from Spock the Vulcan neck pinch, even though we've been told that humans basically cannot learn to do the Vulcan neck pinch. In fact, when Data did it in front of Spock, Spock was actually quite surprised and impressed that Data was able to do it. So, yeah, they were taught how to do it. And then Nurse Chapel's like, oh, you actually figured out how to do it? Oh, he was trying to teach me. And you're like, hang on, Spock is on the Enterprise trying to just teach people he's sleeping with how to do the Vulcan nerve pain. Like, what? But that's how they get up there. And Umbega's reading the thing and he sees a story of his actual childhood. And they're like, wow, that's a cool story. And he goes, no, you're not understanding. This is my actual childhood. Like, it's on the door. And they're like, how's it on the door? And he goes, I'm meant to be here. And Bollock's head comes running out, grabs him, and the two of them go through the door. The door opens, the two of them go through. And it turns out, Missing Eyeballs dude needed Umbega. And so it took the two of them to open the door to go through. And it'll take the two of them to open it to go back through. So these two have gone through to that temple place that was in whatever episode where they had to do the leap of fate. Because the guy is there now to release his people. And Umbega figures out. And he's releasing them so they could take over other people. Because the people on that planet that they've just come from, he made start stabbing their own eyes out. Which, yes, you do get to see. So Star Trek. But Umbega's like, hey, you surprisingly have left me alive. And then he's like, I'm figuring that's because you needed me to get here and you need me to get back. And he's like, so how about I kill myself and you can't do that? And he pulls out a knife and he's making it look like he's about to go for his throat and thing has to run over and grab him. And of course, once he touches him, another door opens and Umbega throws him out. Then we're finding out. Now, when that guy he starts like shooting energy out of his hands at the weird statue thing. Pike's girlfriend on the ships gets this big yellow light scar on her face that fades away, but then her eyes change and it's like you're looking at a universe in her eyes. But they bring her to sick bay. She feels fine. She can see normally and stuff. And this is where they find out, oh, her DNA and stuff has linked with the statue. She is the statue. The statue is her. Then we get the most bizarre explanation to anything I think we've ever heard. It's like, wait, what? As you may or may not remember, she was attacked by the Gorn and was meant to have the Gorn growing in her. They've stopped it, but when they came up with a new medicine for it and stuff, Spock had to do the mind meld with her and they saw something. They then go ahead and explain, now, this is where it gets weird, stupid, ridiculous. And they're like, you're literally just trying to come up with an idea that you've introduced and you didn't know how to get to what you wanted to get to. All of a sudden, she's not actually going to change into a Gorn. She has the lives in her DNA of every species that these other things have attacked in their entire lifetime. Every single species. And that's what she's basically turning into. That she's the key to, because of course, girl boss time. The girl that's the key to everything has all this stuff always is. And that she'll have to go, and once she goes to this place to lock him in and stuff and all those whatever species they were called, she can never leave because she's the guardian basically. She is Neo. She is the chosen one. So they go down to the planet. This is where it also starts getting ridiculous. So there's no explanation as to how this happened to her, by the way. They said something about the Gorn eating some species, and that's somehow how she got the DNA of every single... They just gobbledygooked shit out, and you're meant to go, oh, that makes sense, and it doesn't make sense at all. But they go to the planet. Her and Pike beam down. They can't open the gate, and they're like, we need energy. How do we do this? They come up with the idea. Oh, by the way, the USS Farragut and Kirk are on their way. Because once again, the fucking Farragut is the only ship other than the Enterprise in this entire show. It's like, wow, you got rid of the Discovery and now all of a sudden you've two ships. Like, why is Kirk and the Farragut always the ship to show up? But that's on its way. So they realize, okay, we can use the phasers. Because the phasers are half the power of the sun. That makes no sense, but this is the bullshit they've come up with. But both ships will have to fire because they're like, okay, if one ship is half the sun, what about two ships? But then they're like, okay, but it has to be fired at sync manually to the exact spot. And there's so many variables taken into account that, you know, radiation throughout space, the ships are actually moving when you think they're not moving, all this type of stuff. How do they get around this? Well, Spock has to mind meld with Kirk. Yeah, that's right. Something that they never really done and never pushed for. And the very first time in the original series when Spock mentions it, he is very hesitant to even do it. But here, he's just doing it with everybody. But he mind melds with Kirk, so they're basically in sync. That Spock, by the way, they're confusing how mind melds work, but all of a sudden Kirk goes back to the Farragut and they're still linked, that Spock is basically controlling Kirk. Figure that one out. So the ships end up in sync, they spin in together. This part I found hilarious. They fire, right, at the door thing. It has to be a specific spot they hit. Here comes two big red laser beams from space coming down through the sky, hitting this thing right where it needs to be. Not one single alien that's sitting around this doorway reacts. Not one of them. There's loads of them. They're in front of this door, they're off to the side of the door, they're even behind the door where the phasers are coming down and hitting. And I couldn't help but stare at them going like, there's not a reaction out of any of it. It's like they forgot to tell the extras what's meant to be happening and to be like freaked out. No, they don't even turn around and look. It's like, wow. But the door opens, they go through, and this is where it turns into the inner light. So they get there, they're like, hey, we're on whatever planet it is. And Vega comes around and goes, you gotta hurry, he won't be trapped for long. And the dude immediately, no eyes, comes right back through and starts attacking the statue. She starts getting injured. Pike goes for him, he shoots him, he gets injured, and he's like figuring out, oh, he can't hurt you, but he can't hurt me. And she's like, I don't know what's happening, like, I can't turn it on, like, what? Because the first time she came across him in the sick bay in that other episode we talked about before, she just turned into super ninja and was able to kick his ass. That's not happening this time. And then her hands do start to glow, and this is where the inner light moment happens, and all of a sudden the show goes in a completely different direction, where it's like, what the fuck is happening now? Because her hands glow, Pike stands up behind her, and all of a sudden they're in a kitchen in a house. And the first thing I noticed was Pike had a wedding ring on, and he's like, hey, it's our 1 year anniversary, we made it. And she's like, yeah, we made it. And she sees a present on the counter, and he's like, she goes, I thought we agreed no presents. He's like, yeah, it's tradition. And she opens it up, and it's like a hankies or something with her name but as Pike on it. And she's like, who said I'm taking your name? Why don't you take my name? And whatever her name is. And he's like, oh, that's got a nice ring to it. And then there's a knock on the door. You hear this knock, but none of them are answering it. They're like, hey, is that Robert already? As in Robert Apple. Because Pike is meant to be getting shipped out. But, oh, and she gives him a present. And she says, it's tradition. And it's a chef's apron that says Chef Pike on it. That for some reason has the Starfleet insignia on it as well. So, okay. But it's obviously they're probably going to try and sell that shit as merchandise. But this knock keeps happening on the door, and they go to finally answer it, and then the little dog comes out of nowhere and robs his thing, and he has to go and chase it. And the next thing you know is they're sitting on the couch watching a child play with the bigger version of the dog, and he's sitting there in this Starfleet uniform looking all distressed, and she's like, you know, we knew this day was coming. And it's basically, this is meant to be the mission he's going on, that the accident is going to happen, that he's going to get, you know, disabled and stuff. But the knock happens, and they're like, that can't be my ride yet, it's too early. And they're like, oh, well, I'll answer the door. And she goes, opens the door, and it's Pike, and it's him returning from that mission. And it's like, I don't know what happened. Like, everything happened the way it was meant to, but no radiation, and that panel never exploded, and I don't know what to do now. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? Then there's another knock, and all of a sudden they're older, like really old. He's got longer hair now, and he's cooking, and they start hearing knocks on the door again, and their daughter comes in with, and she's like, oh, hi dad, hi mom, blah blah blah. And they're like, hey, what are you, well, the mother's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, you never told her that? Then this black cadet walks in, and it's Robert April's son, and turns out they're engaged, and they're there to ask her for her blessing. They've already asked Pike, and he keeps hearing the knock, and he goes, is that someone at the door? And whatever his girlfriend's name is like, what knock? And he goes, can you not hear that? And you keep hearing the knock. She goes, champagne, go get champagne and cider for you. And he goes to the fridge, the next minute we're going down this corridor, and she's lying in bed, a little old grey lady, and he's sitting beside her, his little grey-haired old man, and she thanks him for the life, and he finally has to, you start hearing the knocks on the door again, she's like, you gotta go answer the door. And you realise that in this space of time, she's actually taken him to live a life. So it's like they ripped off Captain America going back in time and then spending the actual life with Peggy Carter, and the inner light where Picard ended up living a life that wasn't his, but he actually did live it. Like, he physically was there, it still wasn't it. That's pretty much what's happening to Pike here, is that he's being given a life with her that they're never gonna have, because she's about to be transformed into the statue, basically, to be a guard and all of this shit. And you know, she tells him to go answer the door. She seemingly dies. He opens the door, and it's no eyes. And all of a sudden, we're back to exactly where the episode was before this shit started happening. And that she just like easily defeats him by saying like, I'm all these people, I have a better light than you, and I'm also whatever girlfriend's character's name is. Easily defeats him, instantly turns into a statue, and they've been back up to the Enterprise, and we see how everybody's getting on. Pike doesn't want to talk about it, not yet anyway. He's having a drink with number one. Then we see Spock playing chess and being beaten with chess against Kirk, and then the two of them are like, I think we're going to be good friends, and who knows, maybe one day we'll serve on the same ship. And then Anne shows up, and he's like, Kirk goes, dancing lessons, and she's like, oh god, mind meld. He's like, it's like a tin can. And I'm like, oh, we're not going to get to see him dance again, or we don't. It's almost, but we don't. And then you're just seeing all this other shit with people, and you're like, I don't care. And then Pike eventually comes onto the bridge, and he's still all down, and it ends basically with them just warping off to a brand new planet, and that's where it ends. I was like, Jesus Christ, what was this episode? Talk about a mess. It's like 15 different stories in one, and they hadn't a clue how to figure out how to get to each story and how to wrap it up. It was ridiculous. It was stupid and absolutely horrendously executed. And it's meant to be this big gut punch. It's like, oh, she's finally gone. It's like, no, I couldn't have cared less about this character. So this is... The first season ended with them remaking A Balance of Terror, where they did out Balance of Terror, but it was Pike. What happens if he survived or didn't get injured in the accident? So it was a different life he got to live. That's how fucking season 1 ended. Season 2 ended with him and the girlfriend almost dying and him almost losing her. And then this season has ended with yet another what if you had a life after not getting injured in the accident, as well as you're actually going to lose the girlfriend this time. It's like, Jesus Christ, what the hell were they going to end next season? Oh my god. But thankfully it's over. That's it. For at least a year, who knows, possibly 2, but at least a year, we're not going to have to actually review Strange New World. So that's episode 10 of this garbage heap of a show. So if you've seen it, let us know what you think about it. But thank God it's over, and bring me Tulsa King and Alice in Borderlands. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Cheers. I shall catch you on the next one. Live long and prosper.